Urban infrastructure is the backbone of city life. The roads, bridges, and transit systems we use daily seem solid and permanent, but they've changed significantly over time. Behind the concrete and steel are stories of innovation, mistakes, and bold ideas that have shaped our cities. From the impressive engineering of the Romans to today's smart cities, urban infrastructure has evolved as our needs have changed. This video dives into that journey, highlighting key moments that transformed how we live, travel, and connect in cities. People move through cities daily without thinking much about the systems that keep everything running. Have you ever wondered how the streets, subway, or bridges you use came to be? What forces shaped the city you live in? Urban infrastructure is more than just a necessity. It influences how we live and interact. It reflects the priorities and values of the time it was built. From ancient Roman roads to modern subway systems, the infrastructure of cities tells the story of human innovation and ambition. But these changes didn't just affect buildings and streets, they impacted people's lives, for better or worse. As we explore the history of urban infrastructure, we'll look at both the engineering achievements and the lives that were changed in the process. Before we dive in, please quickly hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support makes a difference, allowing us to keep bringing you fresh, exciting content. Plus, it helps our community grow. Thanks for being part of it. Before cars, trains, or airplanes, ancient cities were already developing the infrastructure to form urban life's base. While primitive by today's standards, these early systems laid the groundwork for the technology we use now. Let's travel back in time, to the very beginning. Ancient civilizations laid the groundwork for modern cities in more ways than you might imagine. The city of Ur in Mesopotamia, often considered the world's first city, set the stage for what would become a universal blueprint for urban planning. Cities were no longer just random clusters of buildings. They had streets, districts, and systems to manage resources and trade. But it wasn't just about city layouts. Infrastructure like aqueducts and drainage systems were key inventions that helped civilizations grow and thrive. In ancient Egypt and later in Greece and Rome, the focus wasn't just on survival but on connecting people. Rome's aqueducts, for example, revolutionized water supply systems, allowing cities to grow far beyond the limitations of natural water sources. Then there's Rome's famous road system. At its height, the Roman Empire built more than 50,000 miles of roads, connecting the entire empire. Their motto, "All roads lead to Rome," wasn't just symbolic. These roads became vital for trade, communication, and military control, creating the foundation for what we now call urban infrastructure. The Romans were ahead of their time when it came to building roads. By 117 AD, they had created over 250,000 miles of roads, some of which still exist today. Roman roads were made from several layers of materials, making them strong and durable. They even sloped slightly to drain rainwater, preventing damage from floods. Roman infrastructure wasn't limited to roads. They also built aqueducts to bring fresh water into cities and sewer systems to keep them clean. These innovations laid the foundation for modern infrastructure, showing that good design is key to creating thriving cities. One of the best examples of Roman infrastructure is the Via Appia, a road that connected Rome to Brindisi. This road allowed goods, soldiers, and travelers to move quickly across Italy. Even today, many modern highways follow ancient Roman routes, showing how lasting their designs were. As cities developed and economies grew, commerce became a major driver of urban infrastructure. London, a crucial trade hub, illustrates this transformation. In the 18th and 19th centuries, London's transit infrastructure adapted to the city's growing trade demands, creating extensive networks that supported industry and commerce. The construction of Regent's Canal in 1820, linking London's docks with its industrial centers, enabled rapid movement of coal, timber, and other goods across the city. By 1836, railways like the London and Greenwich Railway reduced travel times for goods and people, showing how commerce-centered design influenced transit. By the mid-19th century, London boasted over 1,000 miles of canals, providing a crucial link between factories and markets. In contrast to commerce-driven cities, many urban areas in Spain and Latin America were developed with defense in mind. These cities were typically structured around a central square, known as a plaza mayor, with roads radiating outward. This layout was ideal for defense, as it allowed for centralized control and quick mobilization of forces in the event of an attack. Meanwhile, other cities like Mexico City reveal how urban layouts could prioritize defense over commerce. The Laws of the Indies, issued in 1573 by the Spanish crown, formalized this defensive approach, giving rise to structures like Mexico City's Zócalo, which served as both administrative and military centers. While both commerce and defense drove early urban infrastructure, these ancient designs laid a foundation of strategic organization still seen in modern city planning. As cities expanded and populations grew, horse-drawn carriages became the primary mode of transportation. This period, particularly in North America, saw cities begin to develop beyond their historical cores. However, the rise of the horse and carriage era also brought significant public health challenges. By the early 19th century, cities like New York and London had hundreds of thousands of horses navigating their streets daily. In New York City alone, there were 200,000 horses, each producing an estimated 15 to 30 pounds of manure per day. This created severe sanitation issues, as the sheer volume of waste became overwhelming in densely populated areas. In response, cities began to implement early street cleaning and sanitation programs. Boston and Philadelphia were among the first cities to introduce these initiatives in the mid-19th century, signaling the beginning of modern urban sanitation practices. With the 19th century came new challenges. The Industrial Revolution was transforming the world, and cities were growing rapidly as people flocked there for work. This explosion in urban populations created new challenges for infrastructure. The railway was one of the most iconic symbols of this era. Steam-powered trains could move people and goods faster than ever before. Railways didn't just connect cities, they transformed them. Train stations, tracks, and maintenance facilities reshaped urban landscapes. Railroads emerged as the game-changers of this era. With the development of the steam engine, entire nations became connected by railway lines. For the first time, cities weren't isolated hubs. They were part of a national and even global network. The Transcontinental Railroad in the United States, completed in 1869, opened up the entire country to settlement, commerce, and communication. The growth of railroads had a profound impact. They spurred industrial growth, moved raw materials and finished goods, and connected people to job opportunities in rapidly expanding urban areas. This transformation marked a shift in how cities operated, influencing their structure and the way they expanded. By the early 1900s, the U.S. alone had more than 260,000 miles of railroads. However, this rapid expansion also presented new challenges. While trains helped cities grow, they also increased pollution and strained existing infrastructure. Cities had to constantly adapt to keep pace with their explosive growth. In cities like London and New York, grand train stations like St. Pancras and Grand Central became architectural masterpieces. Within cities, subways and elevated trains allowed urban centers to grow. Subways like the London Underground, which opened in 1863, made commuting easier and laid the groundwork for modern city life. Industrial materials like steel also enabled engineers to build bridges that spanned great distances. The Brooklyn Bridge, completed in 1883, was one of the first suspension bridges to use steel wire cables. Tunnels, like London's Thames Tunnel, allowed cities to build transportation networks beneath rivers, extending urban infrastructure even further. While these developments connected workers to jobs, many lived in cramped, unsanitary conditions because housing couldn't keep up with city growth. Public transit eventually improved commuting, but safety standards for workers were still poor. Then came the 20th century, and with it, the invention that changed cities forever: the automobile. Cars quickly became a symbol of freedom and progress, but they also posed a massive problem for urban planners. Cities simply weren't built to handle this new mode of transportation. Enter the highway. In the 1950s, particularly in the United States, the government invested heavily in highway construction. the interstate highway system was born, spanning thousands of miles and connecting urban centers like never before. When Ford introduced the Model T in 1908, it revolutionized personal transportation. By making automobiles affordable for the average American, the Model T enabled people to live further away from city centers while still commuting to work. This shift led to the rapid expansion of suburban areas and triggered a fundamental change in urban planning. As cities grew, road networks began to take precedence over public transit systems, adapting to the increasing number of private vehicles on the roads. By the mid-1920s, approximately 1 in 10 Americans owned a car, highlighting the far-reaching impact the automobile had on society. As a result, cities responded by expanding their road networks, building highways, and redesigning transit systems to accommodate this new era of personal transportation. By 1925, the dramatic rise in car ownership had redefined urban layouts and fueled the expansion of suburban areas. In the U.S., the post-World War II era saw the rise of the interstate highway system, funded by the Federal Aid Highway Act of 1956. Highways made it easier for people to live in the suburbs and commute to city jobs, but they also had negative impacts. Elevated highways often cut through neighborhoods, displacing residents. In many cases, highways were built through low-income or minority areas, leaving lasting social and economic consequences. One infamous example is the Cross-Bronx Expressway in New York, designed by Robert Moses. The highway divided the Bronx. Entire neighborhoods were bulldozed to make way for the Cross-Bronx Expressway. Thousands of residents were displaced, and the effects of this urban renewal project are still felt today. This reminds us of the power infrastructure decisions have on communities, especially those with little political influence. Between 1950 and 1970, 1,500 miles of highway were built in New York City alone, displacing more than 250,000 people. As cities spread outward to accommodate cars, urban sprawl became a problem. Suburban neighborhoods grew farther from city centers, leading to longer commutes, traffic, and increased reliance on fossil fuels. Environmental concerns also grew as car emissions contributed to air pollution. In the late 20th century, cities like Copenhagen and Amsterdam started rethinking car-centric design, investing more in public transit and biking infrastructure. As cities recognized the environmental damage of car-based design, they began shifting back toward public transit. The goal was to create more efficient and sustainable systems that didn't rely on cars. While cars took over the streets in some cities, others turned to public transit as the solution. Cities like London, New York, and Paris recognized early on that public transit could not only reduce congestion, but also make cities more sustainable. London's Underground, the world's first subway system, opened in 1863, and other cities quickly followed suit. Subways became the arteries of the urban landscape, moving millions of people every day. Today, Tokyo's subway system handles over 9 million passengers a day, more than the entire population of New York City. Subway systems became essential in the 20th century. New York, Tokyo, and Seoul built extensive networks that allowed cities to grow. These systems became more advanced over time. Tokyo's Yamanote Line, for example, uses automated trains to move millions of commuters daily with little delay. But subways weren't the only public transit innovation. Curitiba, Brazil, introduced one of the world's first bus rapid transit (BRT) systems in the 1970s. These buses run on dedicated lanes, avoiding traffic and moving swiftly through cities. BRT systems, cheaper and easier to implement than subways, became popular in cities looking to reduce congestion. Curitiba's BRT system was so successful that over 160 cities worldwide have implemented similar systems. Public transit has proven to be one of the most effective ways to manage urban growth, reduce pollution, and increase the quality of life in cities. But it's not without its challenges, especially in car-dependent cities. These transit innovations had real impacts on people's lives. In Bogota, Colombia, the BRT system shortened people's daily commute from 2 hours to just 40 minutes, giving them more time. However, not all changes were positive. In the U.S., infrastructure projects often harm low-income communities. Highways built through these neighborhoods deepened divisions and reinforced segregation. One of the most controversial legacies of urban infrastructure is its role in reinforcing socioeconomic inequality. In the 20th century, many infrastructure projects were built with little regard for the communities they would displace or divide. Highways were often constructed through lower-income neighborhoods, cutting them off from the rest of the city and limiting access to economic opportunities. These decisions created long-lasting divides, both physically and socially. A prime example of this is the construction of the U.S. interstate highway system in the mid-20th century. While it greatly improved transportation and connected the country, it also decimated thriving urban neighborhoods, disproportionately affecting communities of color. Entire neighborhoods in cities like New York, Chicago, and Detroit were razed to make way for highways, pushing residents into segregated, under-resourced areas. The long-term impacts of these decisions are still felt today. Many of the neighborhoods bisected or destroyed by highways suffer from economic disinvestment, poor health outcomes due to pollution, and lack of access to quality education and employment opportunities. In this way, infrastructure projects have not only created physical barriers but also perpetuated social and economic inequality. Recognizing these mistakes, today's urban planners are taking steps to reverse the damage. In cities like Detroit and Boston, initiatives are underway to tear down or reroute highways that have divided communities, replacing them with green spaces, bike lanes, and pedestrian-friendly streets.
It'll be, quite frankly, a landmark opportunity to redress the wrongs of this physical scar in our city.
As we're reimagining how infrastructure supports people and supports life, we have an opportunity to acknowledge that past and build a future that doesn't make the same mistakes.
These efforts are aimed at reconnecting neighborhoods, fostering economic development, and addressing the inequities that infrastructure once exacerbated. Some cities, like Copenhagen, have embraced biking as a sustainable form of transportation. In the 1970s, after the oil crisis, Copenhagen invested in bike lanes and pedestrian spaces. Today, over 60% of its residents commute by bike, thanks to wide, safe bike lanes that keep cyclists separate from cars. Electric vehicles, EVs, are also playing a role in making cities more sustainable. As more people switch to electric cars, cities are building EV charging stations and smart grids to support this shift. By 2030, it's estimated that there will be 125 million electric cars on the road. As we look to the future, urban infrastructure will be shaped by smart technology. Cities will use sensors, cameras, and data analytics to monitor traffic, air quality, and more. These smart cities will optimize infrastructure in real time. The Hyperloop is one of the most exciting futuristic transit ideas. Proposed by Elon Musk, the Hyperloop would move people at speeds up to 760 miles per hour using magnetic levitation. While still experimental, companies like Virgin Hyperloop are working to make this a reality. If successful, the Hyperloop could revolutionize long-distance travel while being more sustainable than traditional transportation. In some cities, residents are becoming more involved in planning their communities. In Medellin, Colombia, locals helped design the city's cable car system, which connects hillside neighborhoods to the city center. In New York, participatory budgeting allows residents to vote on local infrastructure projects like parks and bike lanes. In Songdo, South Korea, sensors monitor everything from water use to waste management, ensuring that the city operates as efficiently as possible. Singapore has implemented similar smart technologies using data to manage traffic, reduce energy waste, and improve public safety. Urban infrastructure has always been about more than just transportation. It's about how we live, how we connect, and how we shape our cities to meet the needs of the future. From ancient Roman roads to futuristic hyperloops, the design of our cities continues to evolve, and so does the impact on the people who call them home. By 2050, over 68% of the global population is expected to live in cities, making smart infrastructure more important than ever. Smart cities have the potential to solve many of the problems we face today: pollution, congestion, and resource scarcity. But with these innovations come new challenges. Can we ensure that these technologies are accessible to everyone? Or will they create an even wider digital divide? Modern urban planners are increasingly focusing on how infrastructure can be both resilient and inclusive. Infrastructure isn't just about efficiency anymore. It's about protecting cities from rising sea levels, extreme weather events, and urban flooding while ensuring that all residents, regardless of income or location, have access to the benefits of city life. One of the biggest challenges we face as cities continue to grow is ensuring that they remain sustainable and equitable. That means not just building smarter cities, but greener cities, places where walking and cycling take precedence over cars, where parks replace parking lots, and where communities aren't destroyed in the name of progress. Copenhagen, for instance, has led the way in designing a city that puts people first. More than 60% of the city's population commutes by bike, and its streets are designed with pedestrians in mind. In the future, we may see more cities following this example, turning away from car-centric planning and towards designs that prioritize quality of life. Take the example of the Netherlands, where cities are designed to live with water rather than fight against it. Dutch engineers have built a series of innovative flood defenses, including floating homes and water plazas that store excess rainwater. As climate change increases the risk of flooding worldwide, other coastal cities are starting to look to the Dutch for solutions. Similarly, cities like New Orleans, which faced devastating flooding during Hurricane Katrina in 2005, are rebuilding their infrastructure with climate resilience in mind. Projects like the Greater New Orleans Urban Water Plan aim to create green spaces that absorb excess rainwater and reduce the risk of flooding, turning stormwater from a problem into a resource. Resilient infrastructure also means including communities that have historically been marginalized by infrastructure projects. As urban planners rethink infrastructure design, there's a growing emphasis on community involvement. Cities are recognizing that equitable infrastructure can help undo the damage caused by past projects, like the highways that divided communities in the mid-20th century, and must ensure that all residents, regardless of income or background, have access to clean air, safe transportation, and affordable housing. As we look to the future of urban infrastructure, it's clear that no single solution will fit all cities. Every city has unique challenges, from rapid population growth to aging infrastructure, and the best solutions often come from learning from other cities around the world. Singapore, for instance, has become a leader in urban planning with its innovative approach to public housing, transportation, and green spaces. The city-state's Garden City initiative has turned Singapore into one of the greenest cities in the world, with vertical gardens, rooftop parks, and tree-lined streets that reduce urban heat and improve residents' quality of life. In Latin America, cities like Bogotá and Mexico City are leading the way in public transportation innovation. Bogotá's Transmilenio BRT system is one of the most efficient in the world, and Mexico City's cable cars provide a lifeline to residents in the city's hilly outskirts, reducing commute times and offering stunning views of the metropolis below. In Africa, cities like Kigali, Rwanda, are embracing smart city technologies to manage rapid urbanization. Kigali's master plan includes high-tech traffic management systems, digital payment solutions for public transit, and affordable housing developments, all designed to make the city more livable as its population grows. While much of the narrative around urban infrastructure is centered on Western cities, the Global South has been home to some of the most innovative and dynamic approaches to infrastructure development. Cities like Lagos, Nigeria, present a unique case. With a population exceeding 20 million, Lagos is one of the fastest-growing cities in the world, and its infrastructure is struggling to keep pace with its rapid expansion. Despite these challenges, Lagos has become a testing ground for inventive infrastructure solutions tailored to the needs of its urban population. For example, the city has embraced BRT bus rapid transit systems to alleviate congestion, using dedicated bus lanes to offer an affordable and efficient transport alternative for commuters. It also hosts a growing number of tech-enabled services that address urban challenges, such as waste management and access to electricity, providing a glimpse into the potential of digital infrastructure to transform cities. For example, Lagos's Eco Atlantic project, an ambitious land reclamation and urban development initiative, aims to protect the city from rising sea levels while providing housing and business spaces for its burgeoning population. Although criticized for potentially exacerbating inequality, projects like these highlight the boldness with which African cities are addressing their infrastructure gaps. The global perspective on urban infrastructure shows that innovation often comes from necessity. Cities with limited resources are finding creative ways to improve their infrastructure and offer lessons that wealthier cities can learn from. The design and development of urban infrastructure will continue to evolve as cities grow, technologies advance, and the world faces new challenges like climate change and social inequality. The future of urban infrastructure will require collaboration between engineers, city planners, architects, governments, and communities to create cities that are not only functional but also sustainable and equitable. Urban infrastructure is more than just roads and bridges. It's about how we live and interact with each other in the spaces we share. As we move into the future, cities that prioritize innovation, resilience, and inclusivity will be the ones that thrive. In the end, the story of urban infrastructure is the story of humanity's ability to shape its environment to meet the needs of the time. From the ancient roads of Rome to the futuristic smart cities of tomorrow, urban infrastructure will continue to define how we live in and with our cities. As we look ahead, the transformation of urban infrastructure will play a key role in shaping the cities of tomorrow. Whether it's through greener designs, smarter technology, or more inclusive planning, the way we build and connect our cities will determine the quality of life for billions of people in the decades to come. So, what do you think? Would you live in a hyper-connected smart city, or do you prefer the more traditional designs? And how do you think urban design impacts your own life? Let us know in the comments below. If you're passionate about the future of our cities and the role of design in shaping them, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and join us for more deep dives into the world of design, technology, and innovation. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.